The conference on climate change has been derailed as countries are not prepared to move on key issues. The Secretary General of the United Nations Antonio Guterres has made an appeal to parties to now push for an agreement, but the Africa group is not moving on some sticky issues. SABC's international news editor Sophie Mokoena is at the COP28 Summit in Dubai and she joins us now. Good afternoon, Sophie. So what does this mean? Will the conference end on time?
Well, you know that the president of COP had promised that they will close the conference at around 11 a.m. local time, that is 9 a.m. South African time, but it didn't happen. It is almost 1600 local time, and therefore there's no sign of that. But earlier on, the Director General of COP did speak to the media, pointing out that there are issues that cannot be resolved, and therefore they are going to circulate a new text, and therefore countries will have to make comments. And we saw many countries taking decisions to postpone what could have been media engagements with countries so that they can articulate their position. Among them also the envoy for climate change from the United States of America, John Kerry, the European Union, the Germans, and therefore, but we did have a briefing by the African group, and they were adamant that they are not moving in relation to adaptation, mitigation, and also the issue of fossil fuels, saying that many countries on the continent are dependent on fossil fuel, and therefore they can't just abandon the resource that is assisting them to address challenges that they are facing. But perhaps let's take a listen at what the DG of COP had to say earlier on about these sticky issues.
We've been traveling around the world talking to parties all year long. You know, we've known for a long time that the language around fossil fuels is complicated and the views of it are complicated. And it's important that we have the right language when it comes to fossil fuels. It's important that we think about how we get that balance. There are those who want phase out, there are those who want phase down, there are those who want different formulations. The point is to get a consensus. And we don't want one formulation that causes blockages in the process. We need the parties to come together because we need to come back to what's the objective. The objective is to achieve 1.5, is to reduce global emissions by 43%.
All right, Sophie, so the issue of fossil fuels is still a thorny one. South Africa is right in the midst of this. We rely on coal, but what is the issue? Just tell us more about what the Africa group is saying, because as I understand it, the idea is that the text will talk about phasing out fossil fuels. So it's not about doing it overnight, but based on the needs of countries. Well, certainly that is what South Africa has been pushing for. Just tell us more about what the back and fro is about right now.
That very same phasing out, that's what countries are not comfortable with. Earlier on, as I pointed out, the African group had a media briefing. Perhaps we can recall that piece or the sound bites, the Minister of Zambia, where he was talking about the position of Africa, and also the Minister of Nigeria, who was even more vocal about this. They pointed out that you cannot take that decision without looking at the history of different countries, saying that developed countries have used these fossil fuels to develop their countries, and they became industrialized countries, and therefore you can't now tell African countries to abandon those resources that they still have to use to develop their own countries.